everybody, to the RDA Coaches Corner. Today we have Adam Badger on. He's the owner and head coach of Amplify Coaching Method and Badger Strength, and is the host of the Talkin Fit podcast, which actually I have been listening to all morning. So
Thank you.
get on that, go check it out. But I think it's better if you introduce yourself. So hi, Adam, how are you doing first? Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too, man. I'm doing good. It's been a hectic morning so far. It's only 9 a.m. by me, which is crazy. But yeah, my name's Adam Badger. I've been a coach for over a decade now. So since 2014 is when I started actually coaching people for a living. I have not made like a single cent of income from non-coaching in 10 years. So it's all I've just been my full-time gig for 10 years now. I've been into working out though since I was probably 13 years old. So that's 21 years, which is really aging me. I generally work with everyday people. So I don't really work with competitors or professional athletes. All my clients are your everyday working professional parents, people who want to be parents, people who are career driven. And some of my clients are people who know that fitness and nutrition is just something that they need to focus on, but they don't want to have to worry about it and think about it. So they delegate that out to me. Or I have people who were just never taught how to eat properly or train properly, and I teach them how. And then I have some other people who maybe have been trying over and over and over again for years, decades, to try to lose that same 20, 30 pounds. And I help them really reset their mindset around the process and break a lot of self-limiting beliefs that they have. So that's the day-to-day work that I do.
Yeah, man. I mean, we pretty much exactly the same. I've been just over a decade as well. As 2013 when I started, so very, very similar time. And the same general public is what mostly work with as well. And I know what you mean. You get so many people come in who have been either telling themselves or had other people tell them that certain things have to be done a specific way for so many years that they just don't realize there's a much simpler way of doing things to get their lives on track to where they want to be, right? To hit the goals that they want to hit. And they've been told for so many years, whether it's by big corporations or just random fad things that are going around, that there's a specific way you have to do it, or you can't have something, so yeah, I get exactly what you mean. But something you mentioned there is, I know it's something you're passionate about, which I've seen through your podcast and your socials. It's self-limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be good just to, as a lot of people will be sending this out to, are the general public. It could be, if you can, just to explain, what are self-limiting beliefs and how could they typically manifest in the context of health and fitness and nutrition?
The way I think about self-limiting beliefs is just a sort of a story that you've told yourself over and over that puts a cap on what you're able to accomplish. And I think a lot of times people, when they think of self-limiting beliefs, they maybe think of like the very deep-rooted ones, like, which are true. Like there's people who think, oh, I'm just not meant to be in shape. I'm not meant to be there. Or I've had people who think, oh, I'm just hopeless. I'm all this stuff. But there's also like these little self-limiting beliefs that people have, like, I'm a picky eater. I can't eat the same thing every day. I'm not a morning person. I'm a sweet tooth. So it's these little sort of drips of stories that we've subconsciously told ourselves over and over and over again, and they contradict a certain goal that you have. And for me, I've had a lot of those in my life, whether it was fitness related, business related, relationship related, that as I got older, and I have two children, I have a 3.5-year-old son and I have a 4-month-old daughter, that I became way more aware of that I didn't want to pass those on. So when I was doing the deeper work for myself, I started also sharing that stuff with my clients when I was seeing those thought patterns pop up for them when they're doing their weekly check-ins or we're on a phone call and people are just kind of talking. You give them a space, a platform to express themselves and a safe space to express emotions and feelings, and things just start coming out. And then as the coach, what I would do is just kind of point out the things that they were saying and kind of helping them realize, like, do you see that how this is something that's not necessarily true. It's just something that you believe to be true, and how we can change that. And the process I have to help people change that is having conversations and all that good stuff. But really, it's just setting some basic tasks that contradict that self-limiting belief, and then checking those boxes every single day. And if you do that enough, you now start to shatter that self-limiting belief.
Yeah. So those small steps working towards that bigger goal, right?
Yeah.
So I'd like to just backtrack a little bit. What you said that you obviously had, with whether it was with your fitness or with your business, what were the kind of self-limiting beliefs that you had to overcome to get to where it is you are now, to be in this position, to be able to teach others?
Ooh, a lot,
Yeah.
a lot of them. So for example, one small one that I had was that like I would I would kind of just use food as a comfort or a
Hmm.
way to have fun, right? So I
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
typical type of person who could like be strict all week long, and then I would just like eat whatever I wanted for 3 days, and that cycle would last for years. And I had this kind of emotional attachment with food. Like I'm definitely I'm not a binge eater or anything like that. I've never had like an eating disorder, but just someone who just viewed food as fun. Like like for me,
Yeah.
there's really no situation that food doesn't add value to, right? So it's
Hmm.
like if I'm
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I'm sad or stressed, food would help me feel better. If I'm having fun and I'm happy, food would make it even more enjoyable. If I got invited to a party or if it's a holidays, the first thought I have is what food were they having, right? So like
Yeah. Yeah.
it wasn't this like huge negative thing, but it was this thing that was obviously there. And then that led into the story of, oh, I'm just someone who's maybe just, oh, genetically I'm just not meant to be lean, or I'm always going to be kind of like a bigger dude. Uh, and then I had to break that self-limiting belief by realizing, okay, well, why are you turning to food? Like, why are you indulging in food? Why is that something that you view as fun? And now I've built this more what I consider to be a better relationship with food, where I view my healthy nutrition as something that is enjoyable, and I actually want to eat
Mm.
that food, and I give myself the leniency to have a few meals a week that are maybe quote unquote off track without any guilt around them. Right. So
Yeah.
it's breaking that self-limiting belief that like I had to be super strict to earn the right to eat these like indulgent foods. And now it's more of just like a steady baseline of habits. When it comes to other things though, outside of that, I grew up with a lot of like trauma and like financial stress, and I've seen like
Mm.
addiction in my family and people struggling. So going into adulthood, I didn't have any playbook on how to become like a financially stable, well-functioning adult. It was just like you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
tossed into the wild at 18 and figuring this stuff out as you go. So I had to break a lot of these fears around, like I had a very scarce mindset around money and things like that. So for me,
Mm.
if it was up to me, I always used to say like, oh, I don't need anything to be happy. But that wasn't, which I think is a good quality. But for me, it was always like I was avoiding any sort of leveling up in life because I didn't want to get knocked back down. So,
Yeah.
when I met my current wife, I was living in like a $700 a month apartment by myself, which is not, I was, in my late 20s, so like it was whatever. But I was prepared to just like live there forever. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
why increase my expenses? Why do any of this stuff? Um, I remember getting offered like at my first training job like a 401k, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to. I need that $50 a week now. Like I didn't want to give it away. Like not seeing like the
Yeah.
long term, but no one taught me any of that stuff. And
No.
so now having all of those things set up, having IRA set up, having index funds set up, having a plan for my future, paying down my mortgage, not having any debts. I at 34, I'm like, oh, that is a more stable environment to be in. But not to go off on too much of a ramble here, but one thing I like to coach people on is that you'll set yourself up for discouragement if you think that those negative thoughts are just going to go away. You just have to get better at managing them. So I still every day have all of those negative thoughts pop up. I've just gotten better at managing them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's brilliant. So do you find then that with your coaching clients, because you said with yourself, you're not just looking at the actual things you're saying, but you're breaking down to what is actually causing you to believe that
The
thing.
root
So
cause. Yeah.
is it trauma of some kind. Are you delving that deep into that with the clients as well?
100%. Yeah, yeah. We get into that deep stuff, and you'll be surprised how much if you're a coach and you're taking the time to actually listen to your clients and have these deeper
Mm,
conversations, you'd be surprised what sort of stuff comes up when you're just genuinely interested and giving people the space to talk about it. Like I've had clients tell me things. I had a client recently tell me some stuff about his personal life, and he's in his 60s, and he was like, I've literally felt these things for years. I've never told anybody. And this is someone
mm,
who is a client of mine who we have a good relationship, but we've never even met in person. It's an online client, but I've just given him that space to express those things. Um, and a lot of people are just never given the space to explore those feelings or dig into these root causes. And it's what causes a lot of anxiety in people is they're walking around, they don't know why they have these self-limiting subconscious beliefs. They're not aware of the root cause, so they can't really fix them. And then what did we do? We numb and distract. And for a lot of the clients that
mm.
I work with, they're using food or alcohol to numb and distract. And that's what leads
Yeah,
to them not feeling their best and what I call like living out of alignment with your core values. So
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
you know, you meet someone who's a parent, they're successful in their career, and they have these core beliefs that they know they want to live by, but their eating habits, their exercise habits are not aligned with that because they're not viewing fitness as this uh, value adding, life changing, positive thing. They're viewing it as this sort of elective vanity thing that they can get to eventually, right? It's like, oh, I can lose
mm,
that 20 to 30 pounds eventually, and it just gets put on the back burner. But if you look at it as like, oh, these habits are actually going to improve my mental health, reduce my stress, reduce my anxiety, increase my quality of life, increase my lifespan, it gives you it's harder to come up with a valid argument not to do them.
yeah, yeah. 100% is how you perceive these things, right?
Yeah,
Is gonna change how you do them. And I like that. I like that the way you manage this by bringing awareness to that root cause then allows you to build the steps necessary to tackle that, right? So
yeah,
to then change these self-limiting beliefs. That's really brilliant. It's interesting, isn't it? How, especially I've found this over my years of coaching, is that people think that you're literally just there for the physical body, but
yeah.
actually, quite a lot of the time you're not, right? You're doing the rest of it, and then the physical body just happens. Like, yeah, we're training them, but most of the time we're actually sorting out this rather than sorting out the physical body.
Oh yeah. I did you do a lot of in-person coaching before you started doing more online?
Predominantly, I've done in person for 10 years, pretty much
Me
straight.
too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's predominantly in
Yeah,
person. Yeah,
even now still have a chunk of in-person stuff that I
yeah.
do, and I think even with in-person sometimes you experience it more because you're getting people like the
Mm.
day after something happens. Like whereas with an online client, they might be going through something and they'll tell you about it like 4 days later. But like with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in-person clients, you're getting someone like coming in like the day after if they're, they had to fire someone at their job or they got fired or they're going through a rough
Mm.
time in their marriage. So you're kind of using exercise as like this vehicle to dig into sort of the underlying stuff that's going on. And I don't think that everyone every trainer is necessarily wanting to go down those avenues, and I don't necessarily even know if every client I have is ready for those when they sign on.
Yeah.
But I think if you organically kind of let it go that way, and don't force it, that I think people genuinely want to share those things. They just don't know when it's appropriate.
Yeah, for sure. It's something you can't push, right? You can't push
Yeah.
those things on. You just let them naturally come out. So how then? Because we're very big on language and the language you use with yourself and also the language you use with each other in terms of how that affects your mindset towards things. How do you challenge that language that they use in their self-limiting beliefs? How do you challenge that?
I sometimes just try to get them to reframe the way they're thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of an example. Um, an easy example would be when someone they go out to dinner, all right? They go out to dinner and then they message you the next day and they go, I think I did pretty good with dinner. I ordered blank. And I'll
Mm,
just say like, well, hey, listen, we got to step out of that good and bad mindset, right? You
Mm-hmm.
didn't do good, you didn't do bad, you just made some choices. And if it was either more calories than you intended or less, right? If you
Yeah,
take that
yeah,
emotion out of it, or one big one is when someone says, "I'm hoping," right?
yeah.
I'm hoping I can stay on track this week, or I'm hoping I can figure out my schedule this week. I go, well, when you say that, what you're saying is that it's out of your control, right?
Mm.
If you're on, what you have to say is what specific actions are going to um, would you identify as being on track this week? And then what specific actions are you going to take to make sure those things happen, right? So if someone says,
Mm.
I hope I can stay on track while I'm on vacation, I go, well, that means nothing, right?
No.
Because what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying
yeah.
is, I'm just going to have no plan. I'm going to wing it and then hope it works out. Or what you can say is, hey, when I go away on vacation, I'm going to make sure I eat protein at every breakfast and I'm going to go for a walk every day. And if I do that, then for me, then I can say, that I believe I was on track for my
Mm.
vacation, and that's cool. But it's really stepping out of like that all or nothing mindset, right? Where it's like I'm
Yeah,
either totally dedicated to this or I'm completely off the rails. And getting
yeah,
people to get a little bit more even keel and just go, it's like brushing your teeth, right? You don't brush, floss, rinse, all this stuff one day and then not brush them for 4 days, right? It's like you brush them
yeah,
at like 70% effort every day for the year round.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, I like that. And that is quite often the problem, right? Is people will go, they'll either say, like you said, prior to doing anything, they go, oh, yeah, I think, or I'll hope I'll do X amount of workouts, and I in this 12 weeks, I'm gonna eat really clean. I hope I'm gonna eat really clean, and then more often than not, they never do it, right? And
Yeah.
or they do, like you said, they go absolutely nuts and do nothing but that, restrict themselves from everything, don't eat anything, go on a juice diet, train 6 days a week, and then all of a sudden wonder why they're absolutely knackered and they're eating ice cream in the basement. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so yeah, it's taking those steps. And what I like, we use with quite a lot of our clients is try and almost have like secondary protocols. So if you can't, it's what I like to call mini habits, for example. So if you can't do your full workout, that doesn't mean you don't do anything. What's something so small and so menial that you could do that makes no sense not to do? So you can't do a full workout, right? So maybe you can train at home for 10 minutes, or maybe you just do 10 squats.
Yeah.
What that does is it keeps it fresh in your brain and keeps that habit alive rather than you just doing absolutely nothing and then feeling ashamed of yourself,
Well,
you
no,
know?
that's so good because I have a similar process with my clients, which is
Hmm.
usually most of the good coaches. We all do the same stuff, right? So
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
funny. I the way I describe to clients is like having a grading scale.
Hmm.
So you have your A plus behavior. That's like your optimal ideal day, which we maybe do 10% of the time. And
Brilliant.
then
Yeah.
what's your A behavior? What's your B plus? What's your B minus? What's your
Mm.
C plus? Right? So there's just most people are just pass fail. They're like, I either did great or I sucked, right? So if
Yeah.
an example I give to people is, one habit that I've seen a lot because I work with people on their nutrition and their training,
Mm.
and when it comes to food, they'll be like, uh, oh, I didn't, let's say, oh, if I don't meal prep, then if they don't meal prep for the week, then they have a crap week nutritionally. And I go, okay, well, your A plus behavior is you meal prep and you have all of your meals prepped for the week, and then you eat those meals and you track those meals and you hit your calories every day. That's A plus. That's awesome. But what's A? Maybe A is your meal prep through Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday, you got to do an extra protein shake. Or maybe
Mm.
your B behavior is I didn't meal prep at all this week, so I've got to grab a couple rotisserie chicken, some deli turkey, and some microwavable rice. So like we have all these backup plans. I like to call them insteads, right? And I have
Oh,
them
brilliant.
say this sentence is, if I can't blank, then I will do blank instead. And
Yes.
it's really just reframing that, right? So instead of going, I forgot to track yesterday, which no one ever forgets to track. You avoided tracking, right? So I
Yeah,
forgot
yeah,
to
yeah.
I forgot to track yesterday. It's like, okay, I usually give my clients like a meal template to help them build their meals. It's like, okay, on the days you forget to track, if I don't track my food, I will use my meal template instead, right? And then you
Mm.
have a backup, you have an instead. And ideally, you should have a few of those insteads for every situation, right? So,
Yes.
especially now being having, my business, and we have a house, 2 dogs, 2 kids. Like, I need insteads. I can't
Yeah.
I can't rely on optimal. None of my days are optimal. I have to just
Yeah.
rely on insteads.
I mean, that's brilliant. I'm not gonna lie, I'm stealing that.
Do it.
I'm stealing. I like the grading scale. I like the instead thing. That's a really simple way of doing things. And I think, like you said, everybody is pass fail all the time if they get one thing wrong. And I wonder, do you know where that comes from? That like, if I don't do the perfect thing, that's it. I have to go and eat pizza all day. Like, where do you think that comes from with most people?
So there's 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 2 things. There's one is where people think it comes from, and one is where I think it probably actually comes from.
Hmm.
Where people who do that think it comes from is because they think that they're like a perfectionist.
Mm,
So they'll say, I'm a perfectionist, and then or I'm too hard on myself, so then when I don't get it perfect, I just give up. And that's another self-limiting belief, because I ask them, where else in your life are you like that? You're not like that at your job. You're not like that in your marriage. You're not like that as a parent. So it's false. You're not a perfectionist, right? Because a
mm,
perfectionist means you literally cannot stop trying until you get it right. That's what a perfectionist is. So a perfectionist, by definition, would mean that you would just be hyper focused on your diet to the point where like it was next to perfect every single day, or else you would find a way to make it perfect because you're a perfectionist.
yeah,
The
yeah,
truth
yeah,
is, what I think is that most people, they they build again, self-limiting belief. They build up what they believe needs to be done to be in shape, to give themselves a reason not to do it.
yeah.
So they make the process harder than it needs. And it's a subconscious thing. I don't think they're doing it on purpose, but it's a subconscious thing. And it's not always their fault. Sometimes it's because this is just what they've been taught or what they've learned through media, whatever. But basically, the root cause is they don't identify themselves as a healthy and fit person. So their idea of what a healthy and fit person is this, on a pedestal, this absolute perfect behavior. And that gives them a valid reason not to try,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
life is stressful. They've got their job, they've got their kids, they got their house, they've got whatever's going on in their life. So they go, again, they're just like we talked about before, they're viewing this as like an elective sort of vanity goal. That So then when, as soon as things get inconvenient, they're like, well, oh, I'm 40. Who cares what I look like?
Mm.
I don't need to be in shape. All that bullshit. Sorry if I'm cursing, but like all that
No, no,
BS.
you're fine. You're fine. Yeah.
um, and that just gives them a valid reason not to pursue it. So they demonize the process. If you want to get really deep with it, I don't know if there's proof with this, but this is a theory that I have. Um, and I think it holds true because I've said it to clients before and they've been like, oh, damn, that's really true.
Hmm.
Is I think that a lot of people have versions of bullies in their life from
Mm.
when they're kids that they can't stand up to. So whether it's
Yeah.
the grandma who made comments about your chubby belly, or the mom that wasn't emotionally available, or the coach that was mean to you, we have all these bullies in our life that we feel like we can't stand up to, or we don't have the confidence to stand up to. So what we do is we create internal bullies that we can stand up to. And when you create an internal bully, this is what happens: is like internally, your negative self-talk, that's your internal bully. So we start calling
Mm.
ourselves, you're hopeless, you're fat. But what we want actually is we want someone to love us for our flaws, or want someone to accept and love us, including our flaws. So
Hmm.
the way to stand up to that bully is to say, well, then I'm not going to eat perfect. I'm not going to work out. I'm going to continue to do what I
Yeah.
want. I'm standing up to you. And I know if that's too mind fucky, but
No. Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. I get it.
I've seen it a lot, and I've had clients actually start to use that term, like, oh, I'm quieting my inner bully, because
Mm.
they see it pop up. Because realistically, if you genuinely, genuinely, genuinely wanted to be healthier and more in shape, then you would never fall off track because you would be obsessed with it. So what happens is they turn fitness into their bully. Oh, fitness, diet culture, my coach, all this stuff. Everyone's telling me that I need to be perfect, and I need to work out all the time, and my way to stand up to that is to not do those things.
Mm.
So they do that, I think, subconsciously, and it gives them some sort of validation. But if you can rewire their brain help them rewire their brain basically to look at fitness and nutrition as these tools that actually help you be the best version of yourself, as opposed to these bullies that are making you feel worthless. They're more likely to stick to it.
I think that's it, isn't it? They're almost rebelling against their own worries, and they're rebelling against themselves when
Yeah,
actually it's only hurting them in the process. Um, and that's the problem is that if I looked at Ronnie Coleman, or if I, what the greatest bodybuilder in the world, if I looked at Brian Shaw, one of the best strongmen ever to live, right,
yeah,
and I looked at them and their achievements, I would and then went, I'm never going to be like them. I should never train, right?
yeah,
If I can try to compare my own fitness achievements to their things, then yeah, of course, I'm never going to want to train. But that's not what it's about, and that's
yeah.
something that we're learning. It's not about that. It's about you just being at the bottom line. It's how can we make our day-to-day lives better? How can we be healthier? How can we live longer? But what quote my business partner uses quite a lot, which is really good, is it's not about the amount of years you put on your life, it's about the amount of life you put in your years. So it's
Yeah.
how much better do you feel on a day to day? And if people don't see it as that, they instead compare themselves to all the models out there and all the people doing crazy stuff.
Well, if you don't mind, like on that point, um, I always have my clients like ask themselves this question, which is, okay, so now what, right?
Mm,
So let's say you do compare yourself, or you do get discouraged, or you
mhm,
do that stuff, which you're probably going to do at some point because you're a human being.
mhm.
It's like, okay, so then what? Like, I, the second question is, how does taking worse care of myself help me right now? Right?
Doesn't.
It never does. But most people don't ask themselves a question. They're reaching for comfort, right? But if you
Mm,
ask yourself, how does skipping this workout, eating this junk food, whatever, how does that make the situation better? And the truth is, it doesn't. It's going to make the situation worse because you're probably never going to stop comparing yourself to that person unless you do the inner work to stop doing that. So the only thing that like the only logical next step is to still just put your best foot forward and try,
yeah.
because I am like front of the line of people who are guilty of doing that, of comparing
Yeah.
yourself to people, of getting easily discouraged, of getting very negative on myself. And I've done that my whole life. The difference is that, and no, I'll be honest with you, like there's probably plenty of times where I let that overcome me and I didn't pursue something that I wanted, or I quit on something that I wanted. I've probably done that more than a handful of times in my life since I was a kid.
Mm,
But there are certain things that I've just sort of hardwired as, like, no matter how discouraged or pissed off or frustrated I get, it's just not an option to not do them. And one of them is working out, one of them is eating the way I eat, and one of them is showing up in doing my business every day.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If the amount of times that I've wanted to maybe quit all of those things is probably like in the thousands, the
Yeah.
amount,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the amount of times that I've actually quit them and stopped doing them for an extended period of time is zero.
Mm. Yeah, it's having those non-negotiables in place. I always tell, but there's one of my examples is you wouldn't just not turn up to your shift at work, right? Most people would still go to work because they got to make money and they don't want
Yeah,
to get fired, right? So it's why do you not turn up for yourself?
yeah.
It's you've also got to do that. Um, yeah, so uh, this is absolutely brilliant, and I love all the little things. Yeah, I love that second question. So what now? That's absolutely
Do
brilliant.
you
I
mind if I
really like
add
that.
one to that based on what you just said
Yeah,
about the work? So another one that I
yeah,
run my clients through, I gotta start like typing this stuff up so I have it. but
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
because it
yeah.
comes up in just like conversations with clients. But one of them, I told the client one time because she was getting really like discouraged. She's like, every day I wake up and I know I want to work out or I want to track my food and I just don't. And I go, okay, like how many days a week do you wake up excited to go to work? She's like, I don't know, zero. I go, and how many days a week do you show up to work? She's like, all day, every day. And I go,
Mm,
do you know why? And she's like, well, I need it. I'm like, why do you do that? And she's like, well, I need a paycheck. I don't want to get fired. I go, oh, exactly. So what do you have? When it comes to your job, you have a logical consequence to not doing it, which is I'm going to lose my job. You have accountability, which is either your boss or your coworkers or your customers, or your clients. And then you also have, there is in there somewhere, there's some shred of belief that you can actually accomplish the job that you're doing. That's all
mm,
you need. So when it comes to
mm,
like your workouts, your nutrition, you need to understand the logical consequence of what's going to happen if you don't do it. You need some sort of accountability for doing it, and you need some shred, not full, just a shred of belief that you can actually accomplish it. So if you break everything down to, like, instead of being like you got to hit these 3 macros, if you break it down to can you have a protein at every meal, most people believe that they can accomplish that. But if you
Yeah.
tell someone who's never tried food before that they've got to hit this amount of fat, this amount of protein, this amount of carbs, it's very, very overwhelming. But if you just go, hey, here's a list of proteins, you got to just have one of these at every meal, most people will be like, okay, I believe I can do that. And then the consequence of not doing it is you make them understand that, hey, listen, if you don't do this, here's what's going to happen. And it's not necessarily like a dire consequence. You're probably going to have more sugar cravings and you're more likely to snack. And message me tomorrow to let me know you did it. That's the accountability. And like, boom, we just got through one day. We just got chipping away at that.
Happy days. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the hardest thing for people, if they have all these self-limiting beliefs and all this negativity surrounding them, the hardest thing can be getting them out of that hole. And like you've just said there and just stated, is you can't throw everything at somebody at once. So what is your initial kind of, what would be the initial steps you take with somebody, with one of your clients, when it comes to trying to change that mindset? Those first few things that you do to try and change that mindset, so they're not constantly using self-limiting beliefs.
So what I like to do is help them or work with them to come up with like what the first steps are. So like I give them all of their, like, say they do their intake, and I create their workout program. I create like what I believe their nutrition protocol should be. We'll get on a call. We'll go over everything, and then through conversation, we narrow down like, okay, what are like the 1 or 2 things you just can focus on this week, right? So let's say we have their calorie goals, protein goals, a workout program, a meal template. They've got all these resources. Sometimes for a client, all they need to focus on for week 1 is, I just want you to message me every day.
Yeah,
Don't want you to. That's it. Like, it's just message me every day. Let me know how the day's going. Right. Some clients, it might be, let's just focus on getting protein at breakfast. So it's like really just meeting them on like what is the next logical step that they can take, and using your professional judgment to go, what is the first logical step they can take that they can not only accomplish, but they will feel some sort of difference. Right. That's important too. So for me, a lot of times for most clients I work with, it's getting them to increase their protein intake, because for most people, if they do that, they're going to feel less hungry, less sugar cravings, less snacking. And if they do that, then that makes them, that builds a little momentum. They're like, oh, wow, this works. It doesn't always have to be you get the scale to drop right away. It just got to be they feel something different in their life.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's about really having those conversations every week of, when you hear that negative self-talk come up, or getting them more aware of it. I tell clients all the time, like, once you're aware of something, now you can recognize it, right? If you're not aware of something, you're never going to recognize when it pops up. If we can be more aware of it and start recognizing when those thoughts pop up, then we go into the mindset reframe of, okay, now what? Or how is taking worse care of myself right now going to make this situation better? Another one I have people do is it's like a 3-question exercise where, let's say you had a stressful day at work and you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to order pizza tonight and drink a bottle of wine. Before you do that, right, you just ask yourself, what am I feeling? Right? Because again, this is you trying to numb uncomfortable emotions. What am I feeling? Anger, frustration, overwhelm, stress, anxiety, whatever it is. You nail down, what am I feeling? And you allow yourself to feel it, right? Because that's another thing we don't do as adults, right? We just like run from our feelings. So if you got to, I always tell clients, you got to blast some, you want to blast some Slipknot or some gangster rap, or you want to punch a pillow, like, you go do that. As long as you're hurting anyone or hurting yourself, you go let that emotion out, and then go, why did I feel that way? Oh, this was triggering some sort of, I feel worthless. And then then third question is, what is one positive or productive thing I could do right now to get closer to the feeling I want to feel? And generally, it's not going to be eating the Domino's and drinking a bottle of wine and scrolling TikTok, right? And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes you might go, I think if you can approach those behaviors from a positive mindset, there's room for them. There's sometimes, honestly, dude, like on a Sunday, if both my kids are napping, that me and my wife just want to watch mindless trash reality TV on Netflix, right?
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah. But if I was doing that hours a day, every day, to the point where I wasn't being productive, or I was missing workouts, or I was getting worse sleep, then that's bad. But if I do that once a week, it kind of resets me. It helps me relax, and it's fun. So you want to enjoy life too. You want to do some of that stuff, but I like to approach those things from a positive mindset as opposed to I need this to not feel this uncomfortable emotion.
Yeah, yeah. And it just to add to those things, what I find as well is getting somebody to do a minute of breath work
Yeah, I'm
tends
big on
to,
breath work.
yeah, that gets them to like just reset themselves, and then because maybe their adrenaline's high or their stress response is going all over the place, do something to like calm the body down, then you might be able to take a step back and see the situation better. If you're going to make what I find, if you're going to make a big choice, I'm going to
Mm.
cancel my gym membership, I'm not going to bother anymore, this and the other, wait 24 hours, go to bed, wait 24 hours, and then make that decision. And usually
Yeah.
half the time they go, ah, that was a terrible idea, I'm not going to do that, right? It's yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, that's great. That's great. I'm big on the breath work too. And I think I've never really used that 24-hour thing, but that's really true because there's been times in my life too where I've had like wanted to make an emotional decision and then like I
Mm.
wait a day before I do it, or I wait 2 days, and then you realize, okay, like that's fine. It's not that as big of a deal as I thought it was, but it's true, man. When you get those, that's the thing too, is like when you get those emotional triggers and you're not aware of why you're responding that way, you
Mm.
just go into that emotional fight or flight state. And to your point on breath work, like it only takes 90 seconds to process and release those stress hormones. But what happens with people is they ruminate and they overthink. So if you get an emotional trigger and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna you get all riled up and you're gonna cancel your gym membership, let's say, um, if you had just like done the breath work for 90 seconds and processed those stress hormones out, like you said, you'd be in a more clear-headed space to go,
Yeah.
well, I don't really need to do that, right? It's
Mm.
not really maybe something I need to do right now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. One thing I always tell my clients as well is just message me. You know what I mean?
Oh
It's
yeah,
you
that's
just
crazy too, right? Just that's what I'm here for.
yeah, yeah, just message me. Just tell me like I'm about to go to McDonald's. Just message me and I can talk you through it. It's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. But it's interesting, isn't it, how often they won't until maybe a week later, and then I go, I did this thing.
Which I'm cool with. The only time I get not outwardly towards them, but internally
Yeah.
frustrated with a client is if they're doing that stuff, but then complaining and saying like, "Oh, this program isn't working for me," right? Like for example, I had someone recently who the only guideline I gave was like, okay, just track your food. That's the only thing. I don't even care about hitting any goals. I just want to see your food. And like 4, 6 weeks in, there still had yet to be one complete week of tracking. And then there
Mm,
was like some expressed frustration in, the scale's not going down. And I go and I literally like I pulled up their food logs on the screen,
mm,
and I said, we're gonna go back 6 weeks, and we went through every week, and I said, this day you tracked half a day, and then you stopped tracking on Thursday, you didn't track for 3 days, like this, and I went through all of it, and I'm just like, all I need you to do now is what we talked about on day one.
mm.
If you just track, then I can see what you're eating and I can tell you what to do instead. But because all of her feedback was also, I think I did pretty good. I think I did pretty good. I think I did pretty good. And I'm like, yeah, but you thinking and feeling is not helping anything. We need some like clear cut data. So
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
if you're a client listening to this, understand that like not communicating with your coach when things are not going good is like the equivalent of having your check engine light on and being like, oh, I'm avoiding the mechanic. Like, I don't want to even
mm,
go to the mechanic. Right? It's like, or like if you need your oil change and then not going, and then something happens to the car and you're like, oh, that stupid mechanic, he should have called me and told me my oil change was due. It's like, no, there's a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit of personal responsibility here.
yeah, for sure. And it's I think sometimes clients forget that actually we're there for them, where it's not.
Yeah.
My something I always tell all of my clients is my biggest goal is to get them to the point where they don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
Where they can go off and do their own thing. And I think a lot of people, maybe it's through bad experience with other coaches, but they think we're in it for the cash. Yeah, the money's lovely because I'm making a living, but also at the same time, I'm not. I want you to go and do your thing. I'm here to help you become
Yeah.
whatever version of yourself that you want to achieve. So, and that honesty is, I think half the time they think the honesty part is them lying to us, but actually they're lying to themselves in a sense because they're
Yeah.
not, they're not being honest about what they're eating to themselves and then avoiding it and being secret eaters or whatever it is,
Or they're giving up. I think people are too quick to give up authority,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they hire a coach, and then subconsciously they just give up all this authority to us, like,
Mm,
and now we become this other person in their life that they have the potential of disappointing. So I
mm,
like to always very make it clear on a regular basis to my clients, like, you're never going to disappoint me because I I say this in a very, very nice, what I believe to be a very nice and clear way. But at the end of the day, I care,
mm,
but like not caring to the point of like where I'm gonna get angry at you for not accomplishing your goal. Because it's
yeah,
your goal, not my goal. I'm here to help you. I always tell them like I'm like a GPS, but like you get to plug in the address where we're going. Right. So like
yeah,
you tell me where you want to go. I'll tell you, okay, we can go this, this, and this, but you can still have the free will to make a left turn. And if I told you to right turn, you'd make a left turn. That's fine. But I'm there to help you reroute and still get to where you want to go. But a lot of times, what people do is they make that left turn and then they shut off the GPS and they drive for 3 more hours and now they're completely lost and then they turn the GPS back on and go,
yeah, yeah.
help me, help me, help me. And I was like, well, if we just like communicated back when you made that left turn, I probably could have rerouted you relatively quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you're the GPS, but they've still got to drive the car, right?
They got to drive the car, they got to plug in the
Yeah,
address.
they got to
Yeah,
do all of that sort of stuff. Amazing. Well, Adam, we're running out of time, but before we go, I mean, thank you. As I said before we started recording this, you're my first international guest, which is awesome.
that's awesome.
Um, and we'd definitely love to have you on again at some point if there's another topic you'd like to talk about. But
Oh,
what I'd like to
whenever, I would love to.
plug, where can people find you? Where's all your stuff?
Um, Badger Strength on Instagram is a
Yeah,
good place to go. Talk and Fit with Adam Badger is the name of my podcast. It's on Apple and Spotify. I don't know when this is going out to everybody, but when is this going out?
probably in I would say probably about a week. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So cool. So actually starting September 9th, I'm
Mhm.
doing a 6 week challenge that is
Awesome.
geared towards rerouting your mindset and learning how to overcome emotional eating, kill sugar cravings, and we have that extra cherry on top of trying to drop 10 to 15 pounds before the
Yeah,
holidays. But that starts September 9th. It's only $97. It's like dirt cheap.
sweet.
It's all virtual. So if you are someone who you're like, hey, Adam was talking about stuff that kind of resonated with me, I want to learn some of that stuff. There's going to be a ton of like group calls, but also like modules and resources that you can keep after the challenge is
Mm,
over. So whether you're someone who actually wants to overcome that stuff, or maybe if you're a coach that's listening to this and you're like, hey, I want to learn how to communicate on that stuff better. It's like I said, it's $97, so it's like it's less than people are going to spend going out to dinner this weekend. So,
yeah, yeah, definitely, man. Yeah.
so
Well,
I'm going to link that. That's all linked on like my podcast, and it'll be linked on my
yeah,
Instagram as well.
yeah, we'll get all your links together for this because this will be going out on YouTube and stuff and all of that sort of
Awesome.
stuff. And yeah, so Adam, and once again, thank you very much for coming on. Really great insights. Absolutely loved it. And hopefully we will speak again soon.